of Aneurysm Management by Dr. Rajiv Gulati.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here, Tejas and colleagues. So I want to show some brief cases on some new thinking around management of coronary aneurysm. So this is first case is a 74-year-old male with severe symptomatic aortic stenosis. Long story short, he could go to either SAVR or TAVR. The screening CT scan showed an abnormality of the left main that led to a coronary angiogram. You don't need to be shown what this is, but there's a large bifurcation circular aneurysm of the distal left main with an associated moderate significant distal left main stenosis. So these are not common. I'm sure all of you don't see these every day, but we do see these from time to time. What do we know about these left main or these saccular aneurysms of the coronary artery? Very little indeed. What we do know a lot about are brain aneurysms, and they look very morphologically similar here. And you can see the data on the left, what we've learned about the brain aneurysms. One, there's a few people in this room who probably have one, asymptomatic. We know which ones to treat, which are at higher risks of rupture, and there's some great treatment options, endovascular and also surgical. The coronaries, we know very little. As I've shown you there, there's one or two case reports of coils, maybe some other covered stent strategies. But key here is that these in the left main are not accessible to the surgeon. It looks like you can go and put a clip on that, but ask any surgeon and they say, I don't want to treat this. It is surgically prohibitive. It is deep in the pericardium. It's behind the pulmonary artery, underneath the left atrial appendage, and any manipulation will make the patient very ischemic. So surgeons don't want to treat this. This is our patient. Ultimately, the decision, he did have surgery, but for the aortic valves. He had a surgical aortic valve replacement, had 2-vessel coronary artery bypass grafting, and the decision was made to leave the left main alone and follow and see what happens. Well, this is what happened. We found an old CT and we looked, and actually this left main aneurysm is expanding. You can see over about 18 months it's significantly changed in size. The patient and the patient's wife in particular was very nervous, saying, what's going to happen? Is it going to burst? Am I going to die suddenly? And we don't know. We don't have the data to answer that question, but we felt an aggressive strategy was reasonable on the basis of growth. What options do we have? Simply speaking, and the neurosurgeons, the neuroradiologists will say the same thing, you can either treat the vessel, in other words, a covered stent, or a mesh-thick flow diverter stent that the neurofolk use. I don't think that would be good in this particular case because I don't think you get a complete seal of that neck. If you put a covered stent from the left main into the circumflex, you have a mammary artery on the LAD, but you won't seal that neck. There'll be backfilling into that aneurysm. Also, then you have the risks of a stent and the requirement for antiplatelets. On the other hand, you can obliterate the aneurysm with coils. That's one option. And I want to share with you some information about the flow disruptor, which is a well-established technology used in the brain. This is probably the commonest use. It's made by Terumo. There are many shapes and sizes. The woven endobridge. This is a nitinol mesh. The idea is it immediately disrupts flow at the neck and promotes secondary thrombus, and then you get endothelialization over time. Could you choose coils? Yes, I've given you a table here why the web flow disruptor is probably more efficacious. There's a lower risk of aneurysm recurrence in the brain and a lower risk of spillover thrombus into the parent vessel, and it's easy to place. So we said, well, why don't we try this in this left main coronary artery? It looks very much like a brain aneurysm. This is we did it as a live case. You see it's extruded, and it's quite firm when it's extruded. If you come out a little bit more and it flowers, this is now very soft. So at this point, you can manipulate it and move it around the aneurysm, and then you unsheath it, and it exposes, and then you can disconnect that as needed. You can squish it, it stays squished. You can elongate it, it stays elongated. So a very nice device. This is a patient here. Transradial approach, you see that aneurysm. You'll see the radiopaque marker in the aneurysm is a microcatheter, a dedicated one, a VIA33, and over an 024 wire. Here is us a fluorosave, as we just heard about, unsheathing this web SLS device, pops open, and we just, once we're happy with the position, we can just use a typical electromagnetic machine and disconnect it, pull the rod out, and here's the final angiographic result immediately after release. You're seeing some contrast stasis in the aneurysm. OCT from the circumflex back to the left main showed there was no obstruction, no protrusion into the coronary artery. And the next day, there's complete sealing that stayed there at 6 months. You can see the bright clips of the marker, fluoroscopic markers on the device over there. So complete closure really immediately after the procedure. So this is proof of concept that you can use this brain device, a flow disruptor, for a saccular coronary aneurysm. This is case number 1. And shortly after doing case number 1, we were referred this by the surgeons. This patient had a CT for atypical chest pain, but her sister had a big stroke from a ruptured brain aneurysm. The patient was very worried. The surgeon said they could do a ligation and bypass, but they asked us if we could treat this. And we said, well, we've done one. We can certainly have a look at doing this again. Here is the case, and this is IVUS of the diagonal, and you see coming back here, you do see the aneurysm coming on the top of the screen here, but importantly, we now see that the diagonal narrows down again. So this aneurysm involves beyond the origin of the diagonal. So you cannot put a covered stent in here. It will absolutely lose that diagonal. Coils will be a challenge because they are hard to position to ensure you have preserved flow into the diagonal. So here we did the same thing. You see a wire in the LAD in diagonal. You see the microcatheter, the VIA one, in that buried into that aneurysm over here. Here's the device placed. You can move it, squish it, and elongate it. And it was extruded, and the patient went home the next day on aspirin, and she had a repeat angiogram recently and shows continued complete obliteration of that angiogram and preserved flow into the LAD and diagonal. Case number 3, I just added, because we just did this a few days ago before getting on the plane. This is a patient who had immunosuppression from chronic therapy, had a Staph aureus osteomyelitis, an infected pericardial effusion that was drained, several months of antibiotics, and a CTA that suspected a pseudoaneurysm or mycotic aneurysm of the left main that was growing over time despite the clearance of infection. Yes, again, the surgeon said, we are not interested, we cannot do this, we can do a bypass, but we cannot address this aneurysm. Here it is on the MIP image, and we see here that the saccular aneurysm. The difference here is this is bigger than the ones I've shown you, and bigger than the largest web device that we have. So our options here were a few, but our decision was to treat this with multiple web devices and a stent to go across it, because did we not put a stent across it, there's a risk that that web would protrude into the coronary artery and risk an ischemic complication. So here's a right femoral 8 French approach for this one. We wanted 8 French so we could get multiple catheters in place. The VIA, you can see just here, the microcatheter tip buried into the left main aneurysm. You see an undeployed 4mm stent going from the left main into the circumflex coronary artery. The strategy here was number 1, we deployed the SLS device, and you can see that over here with some contrast hang up. Number 2 was to inflate the stent to trap it in position, also trapping the microcatheter. Number 3 was to inject contrast into the microcatheter, and you see still some swirling of contrast just beneath that device, just some swirling of contrast around here, showing we had residual unoccupied space. So we put a second device in. This is the Webb SL 8x3, and we unsheath it over here. You can see the microcatheter is being pulled back, and then did an angiogram, and we post-dilated the stent to really secure it in place. And we see now complete filling, obliteration of this aneurysm, and a widely patent stent going down here, and a really pleasing result on the next day's CT angiogram. No contrast going into the aneurysm. You can see the 2 web devices and a widely patent stent. So this was a more complex stent, as it's a double web procedure for a very wide neck, large aneurysm. Now, I did want to step aside for one moment before I show the very final case and pay tribute to Apex, because they presented this last year and published this a couple of years ago of a different morphology aneurysm. You couldn't use one of these web devices in here, but the innovative strategy for this case was to start with a long metallic stent. Once that scaffold was in place, then layer multiple, I think, papyrus covered stents inside this to get an excellent, immediate, gratifying result. Well, coincidentally, Tejas, Sam, Sanjay and colleagues, we had a similar case come to us of just at the end of last summer, a bigger aneurysm. This was another ugly, ugly. I think this is most likely pseudoaneurysm. The surgeon said, we're very happy to treat this. We will ligate this and do a bypass. The patient, who's 81, said, over my dead body, I'm not having cardiac surgery. So we had a lot of back and forth and ultimately used the same strategy, Tejas. I hope you can see we got a good result, so a long synergy stent. You see a little bit of a type 1 endoleak around here, a bit of a porous type 3 endoleak over here, all of which had gone by the next day CT, and a very gratifying 4-month CT exam we just got here, showing shrinkage of that large aneurysm and wide patency of the right coronary artery. So just in closing, just a very brief closing slide here. I think these coronary saccular aneurysms do exist infrequently. We don't know what the natural history is, but we now have a new, I think, very safe and efficacious treatment, small numbers, of course, just 3, of a flow disruptor. And I would encourage you to think about that as an option for these patients. And with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. Do you have any distinction as to mycotic versus not mycotic? How would you approach using the device, number one? And of course, with Dr. Tejas Patel himself, I would like to know that strategy, which again, he quoted the case, beautifully demonstrated. Even you did a wonderful case. Can that be a strategy in a mycotic aneurysm? How early post-PCI? Because I think that's a big subgroup in our part of the world.
It's a good question, Kamal, because when we treated that long aneurysm, very bad, I mean impending rupture, we had the longest size of the papyrus available, 26 millimeter, and the length of the aneurysm was 30. Sanjay came out with the idea that we create a 38 millimeter platform with a metal stand and we do an overlapping. Patient is still fine. But subsequently, we have come across in India, Rajiv, because of the reusage of the material, we are coming across this type of aneurysms time and again. And surgeons, when we give them to surgeons, we have realized that it's full of pus. And when they put a slit on it, you find the pus flowing out and very bad organisms, but particularly atypical mycobacteria, Mycobacterium chelonin, all those things. And that's why, even if, in India, we have to reuse in certain areas or for all these yojanas, please make sure and please keep a close eye on your sterilization system. That is very important.
I mean, it's a great question, and I think the short answer is we just don't know. My big worry is infection, and it's very early. I've shown you these are very recent cases. Maybe in 1 year we can call and let you know, because the infection may not show itself for several weeks and months. So that's why we had a lot of back and forth. Inflammatory markers were normal. We actually took blood cultures from the aneurysm. Nothing grew. So far early, it looks like there's no recurrence, but that is a worry for us.
I'd also like to take your attention towards something else. I come from a place where there's a lot of usage of drugs, substance abuse, and I have seen a lot of this kind of disease, morphologies like this, aneurysms, and a lot of them, once we followed them and we just put them on high-dose statins, we found aneurysms, and finally, I think this is one area, substance abuse, which has to be, especially cocaine, which has to be, linked to coronary aneurysms.
Very interesting.
And another important, how many of you are using Sidex in your cath lab? Can you raise the finger? So be careful, because Sidex is a medium for growth of atypical mycobacteria, and they are very resistant to whatever you do.
Yeah, somebody said that it's some of the microbes actually flourish in that Sidex. So it's more of a micronutrient for them. So I think Sidex is a bad strategy. I think ETO is something that you can sometimes use, but otherwise everything new, at least post-dilatation, that's the strategy. Jayesh bhai, your comments?
Yeah, well, excellent talk. I want to ask, which are the aneurysm, size of the aneurysm, where we can follow it up, and how we should follow at 3 monthly interval, 6 monthly. Suppose each and every aneurysm, should we intervene, or how we can follow it?
I would say your guess is as good as mine. Honestly, I think that's the thing. We have a great information from the brain, and we showed one of the big predictors of rupture in the brain is aneurysm growth. an aneurysm size. I think it makes sense to do the same thing for us, that if you have 3 data points and there's evidence of growth over time, to me that would be more of an indication to treat. What has lowered the threshold to treat is now that we have this treatment. Before we had no good treatment, coils are not a great option, cover stents are not. Now that we have, I think, relatively simple treatment, maybe our threshold should be a little lower to treat expanding aneurysms.
I think the other strategy could be the flow diverters, because that's again what they use in cerebral circulation. If you can achieve a laminar flow through a stent technique, which can actually give the laminar flow rather than occlude the aneurysm per se, most of the time over time, as in cerebral circulation, we know that aneurysm tends to collapse.
With one slight caveat, as these are not drug-coated stents, these are bare
Not
metal
drug-coated
stents.
stents.
So I think in a left main, maybe think about that as a variable.
So every time we have to follow with the CT angio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we now move to next interesting talk. This is about stent expansion, how to navigate expectation and realities. Dr. Samir Pancholi, I overheard him over a cup of tea. Let me hear the full discourse now.
So just a question about coronary aneurysms, if permissible. I'm talking about smaller aneurysms which cause acute coronary syndromes and thrombosis. And many of times when we see them on a coronary angiogram, we just leave them alone on triple therapy. So I would like to ask how long to continue a triple therapy in such a patient with ACS, and what should be the strategy after, say, 3-6 months in such patients?
Dr. Rajiv, you want to take that?
I think these questions are just fantastic. I know the answers to none of the questions that anybody has asked. If someone's had an ACS with an aneurysm that's thrombotic and you think there's microembolized, we can do a survey. Our typical treatment will be DOAC and Plavix for a period of time if they've had a non-STEMI from a microembolization. If isn't completely occluded, then there needs a stent across, maybe a short period of triple therapy. I think that would be how we would play things.
Okay, so thank you. So just how long do we continue anticoagulation for such a patient? Say
So
for
again,
initial 1 month.
Again, anybody's guess, as you were saying, there are very little data for the coronary aneurysms, but very often the strategy, if you're using master DAPT kind of a data set, is that if you have a 4th generation drug-eluting stent, you would actually continue with a NOAC with a P2I12 and stop aspirin as early as you can, maybe in 3 months.
After
And
1
then
year,
1
sir-
year you just stay
yes,
on NOAC.
just
yeah.
a NOAC. Okay, thank you, sir.